Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It is the National Council of Jewish Women have worked to coordinate a nationwide reproductive rights Shabbat, of which this is it. And so we see that accordingly, all of you knew that. You came in and all of you sat to the left. So we can see your persuasion. But tonight, we will be talking about reproductive rights. That's also your fair warning for those of you whose parents may not want you to talk about reproductive rights yet. You'll figure out that at one point you can go for a nice walk if you'd like. But that's the topic for tonight. It's what a lot of synagogues across the country are focusing on, in part because of the Torah portion that we read, which I'll explain later, but also because this continues to be an issue that is a top priority for the Jewish community nationally and internationally even. We'll start by inviting Andrew Meerman to our bima to share announcements and a word of welcome.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I have a lot of announcements here, so please bear with me. I won't turn this into the Andrew Meerman show. The Hamantashen making, join Sisterhood. They're making their famous Purim cookies on Sunday, February the 19th at 9 a.m. So if you're good or you're bad, they'll teach you, enjoy, eat, have fun. Israel trip, there's an informational meeting. We're going to do a multi-generational trip planned for June of 2024 for our congregation. And the informational meeting is on Sunday, February 26th at 10 a.m. So please join us if you're interested, or just to get some information. The gift shop on Sundays will be open February 26th from 9 a.m. to 12:15 p.m. And now we also have Interfaith Justice Series. There's going to be 4 sessions, Interfaith Justice Series, starting here at Temple Israel on March the 1st at 6 p.m. and continuing every Wednesday in March at the participating congregations. The topic this year will be gun violence, and RSVPs are required. We have sent an email out, so please do. We're getting a lot of temple participants. Purim Ruach Shabbat will be on Friday, March the 3rd. This one will be a fun one. Come dressed up as your favorite character for a children's storybook. I think you clarified that now.
Yes.
Okay. So a lot of options out there. We have Purim Oneg on March the 3rd as well, and there'll be a hot meal and Sisterhood's famous Hamantashen. So now RSVPs are required for that. And finally, well, actually I have 2 more announcements. Sisterhood's afternoon at the theater. So join Sisterhood on March the 26th at Hay Fever by the Ohio Shakespeare Festival. Registrations are due February the 26th. And the last one is from the Ritual Committee. They're asking that we'd love to have you here, but if you can't be here with us at Temple Israel, please join your Shabbat experiences at home or wherever you might be. Take some pictures and send it to an email address, which is in the lobby. There's a poster with all that. They're putting together a slideshow, and love for your participation in that. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
So we want everybody to feel welcome. If you're a guest here especially, we hope that you'll feel that you're a part of our congregation and you'll join in our prayers. Please turn to those around you, those who've been here before and those who are here for the first time. Introduce yourselves, say Shabbat Shalom, make sure everybody feels welcome. We invite Jem Ursaheen to light our candles and hold our Kiddush cup. We're on page 2 in our prayer books.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik nir shel Shabbat.
Page 5, the words of Kiddush to sanctify the Shabbat evening.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצבנו, ושבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשי וראשית, כי הוא ים תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. Amen.
We take a moment now as we walk back through our week. Remember where we were a week ago. All the people we've spoken with, the places we've been, the times when we've been energized and the times when we've been exhausted. We count these 6 days up until this moment, so that this moment can be something new and different, so that this moment can be a day in which we enter into it feeling we've completed everything we needed to do, ready to take a day to be restful, and ready to take a day to be sacred. We join in that moment together. Page 10, the words of Hine Matov. As we begin our Shabbat together, we are glad that we can all be here together, brothers and sisters, members of one community. Page 10. Page 20, the words of L'Chadodi, as we share this prayer. When we reach the final stanza, we'll face our door. We'll physically welcome Shabbat into our sanctuary and into our lives. Page 20.
Shamor v'zachor v'dibarach al hishmi'anu לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת לקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת לקבלה.
Please rise as we face our entrance.
בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גמה בשמחה, ובשכלה, תוך אמונה, העם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת לקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת לקבלה.
Remain standing, page 26.
יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברך ירצה וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי כל בית ישראל, בגלה בגלה, ובזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעלם ועמי עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקדושה בריחו. לעילם מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירה בעלמא, ויאמרו אמן.
Entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time. Even at unlikely times and through unlikely places, there is no place on earth without the presence. Page 28, our call to worship, Baruch Hu. This is an hour of change. Within it, we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? For this is the hour of change, and within it, we stand here quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over?
Baruch atah Adonai, Amari, Aravi.
Page 32. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people, Israel.
Baruch atah Adonai, Ohi, Amo Yisrael.
Shema, page 34 and 35.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivud Malchuto Leolam Vayim.
You can be seated as we continue page 36.
V'ahavta את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אלוהים מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך ובביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Please join me responsively, page 39. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה.
Page 44 at the top of the page. Vishamru is our prayer that reminds us not only are we part of a people, but we are a part of a people who has worked hard to make sure that we, wherever we are, find this day to be together, to guard Shabbat, to make it a day of peoplehood and a day for our own personal growth. Page 44, the words of Vishamru, we sing together.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם. ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי
Page 47, an introduction to our Amidah. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. It may not bring water to parched fields or mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city, but prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. We turn to our most personal prayers now, the words of our Amidah that begin on page 46 and continue for the pages after as we recall the names of our ancestors and also as we let our hearts share words of their own as we'll conclude with our silent prayer, this section of our prayer book. Page 46, please rise.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufia gita hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanara, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot V'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem L'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham V'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol Atah Rav LaHoshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem, Mechakel Chayim B'Chesed, Mekayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofech Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Micha Mocha Bal Gevurot, Umido Melech, Melech Meimid Umechaye, Umatmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman Atah L'Hachayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechaye HaKol.
Atah Kadosh v'Shimcha Kadosh u'Kdoshim b'chol yom Yihalelucha Sala Baruch Atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. Please be seated. Join with me at the top of page 55 as we share these words of prayer for our Shabbat. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. On page 60, the words of Shalom Rav. We think of all the people in our world who are suffering in this moment, those who are the victims of violence, those who face wars on their doorstep, those who face uncertainty. We wish for them a Shalom Rav, a great source of peace to find its way to their homes. Page 60.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki Atah Melech Adon L'chol Hashalom. Ki Atah Melech Adon L'chol Hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarich et Amcha Yisrael. B'chol tovcha bishlomecha. Shalom Let's take a few moments for silent meditation. Ratzon imrefi, Yiyul ratzon imrefi, V'yon libi lefanecha, Adonai tzuri v'goali. Oh, may the words of my mouth, the meditations of my heart be acceptable before you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. Oseh shalom b'mromah, Uyaseh shalom
Shabbat Shalom. During my summers during rabbinical school, I spent my summers at a summer camp in Northern California. The camp had just relocated, which was a major issue because all the people who went to the previous location of the camp were very angry that the camp was in a new location. And to them they said, we would have done this differently, right? No, it doesn't matter if everything ended up working out, which it did in the long run. They said, you know what, you all made the wrong decision. If I had been in your place, I would have known what to do and I would have done it differently, and now I'm angry because you made a bad decision. I was there, I had no affiliation with the camp prior, so I was just the new guy on the block. And one of the smaller battles that was happening was that the counselors who had grown up at the previous camp had gotten used to always, every night there was a ritual that as they would put the kids to bed, when they were campers and they were put to bed, they would sing a version of the Shema. And somebody decided one year to change the tune. Well, you would have thought that civil war was on the verge of breaking out because these 18, 19, 20-year-olds said, you can't possibly change that tune to my Shema. That's what's always been sung here, and if you do that, it will ruin the whole experience, and these kids won't have what I had. Two terms that I recently was taught that describe both of these scenarios. The first is, I love this term. At my conference a couple weeks ago, the professor used it. I don't know if he came up with it or not. It's called the myth of false piety. It's the myth that something happened a long time ago that caused what's happening now to happen. In other words, you can't change that because it's always been that way. Since Moses, it's always been that way. We say this about, Jews are great at this, by the way, right? There are people who believe that Moses, back in the Bible, dressed like he was an 18th century Polish aristocrat, Hasidic Jew, right? Impossible. Or people who will say, well, Jews have always decided that you're Jewish by your mother's, by being born to a Jewish mother, except that in the Torah, it was by your father. Right? We have these ways of saying that it has to be this way because it's always been this way, except the myth of past piety says, actually, it hasn't always been that way. That's the first term, and that describes what happens when a camp moves from one place to the next, because, in fact, that camp wasn't always at that first campus either. The second term is a term used by psychologists called hindsight bias. Hindsight bias is a tendency we have to predict an outcome, to basically say that we're right about something that we had no way of being able to be right about. So the examples are, you might say today, I knew it was going to snow today. I felt that the air was colder last night, so I knew today, honey, I knew it was going to snow today. I was ready. Or as one article pointed out, they said a kid gets a letter in the mail that they've been accepted to the college of their choice. Their mother turns to them and said, I knew you were going to get in. Except that the week prior, she had said to her husband, I don't think he's going to get in. Right? There's this sense that when things happen in a certain way, we say, I knew that was going to happen that way, or I knew what the right answer was, right? That my answer is the right answer. That's the counselor saying to the staff, my Shema was the right Shema, and I know that. I know what the outcome of this is, even though there's no way that they could possibly know what the future looks like. So I share this tonight because I think these two things are human nature. We do this all the time, and here we are, once again, 50 years after Roe v. Wade was passed, and we're debating whether abortion should be legal or not, and part of the debate has to do with this myth of past piety that this is how it's always been since the Bible, this was the rule, when it wasn't. And some of it has to do with the fact that we might look back, whatever opinion or feeling you have about it, and say, well, if I was in that position, I know the right thing to do. I know what the answer should be if I'm a woman who's pregnant in this scenario or that scenario. If I was there, I would know exactly what to do, so you should know what to do, and therefore the law should know what you should do. And so this Shabbat, as synagogues across the country focus on reproductive freedom, I want to talk about the way these two terms play into this one big issue. So I'll share with you some of the myths that I think are prevalent and some of the biases that I think we have. They may be ones that you disagree with or that you agree with. It's not any one side or the other. It's simply the way this very complicated issue has been twisted and turned, and my hope is that we can address it directly. So the first myth that I want to address is that religions agree that life begins at conception. This week's Torah portion, probably the reason why reproductive freedom Shabbat was chosen for this week. This week's Torah portion is actually the first time in the Bible that a fetus is ever referred to, at least loosely. The passage is, when two parties fight and one of them pushes a pregnant woman and a miscarriage results, but no other damage ensues, the one responsible shall be fined according to the woman's husband, according and as the woman's husband may exact, the payment to be based on reckoning. In other words, that's a long way for the Torah of saying, we don't know what the cost is. But if a woman is knocked over intentionally and she's pregnant and she loses the pregnancy, then there is some sort of a price that will be paid, but we can't tell you what that price is. The reason we know that they can't tell is because of the next passage, very next verse, which you're all very aware of. If other damage ensues, the penalty shall be life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, or bruise for bruise. It's believed that there was never an actual, despite what people say, another myth of past piety, that there was never actually a time where if you poked out somebody's eye, that your eye got poked out. The idea was you could judge the value of what someone's hand is, the way that we might today have insurance. if you're a surgeon, you might insure the work of your hands. We could put a price on what that work is. In the Bible, they said we can put a price on how important it is for you to be able to see out of an eye. So if you lost an eye, here's the price. But when a woman falls over or is pushed over in a fight and loses her pregnancy, we don't understand what the value would be. And many believe they mean that means it would be actually less. And so Exodus, first of all, never says that life begins at conception, because if it did, then in that long list of things, it would say at the end, the loss of the pregnancy is a life for a life, just like a life for a life would be lost if the woman were to be murdered. Second myth, Christianity is against abortion. While the Catholic Church is consistently pro-life, a recent study showed that American Catholics are pretty evenly divided, about half remaining in favor of a woman's choice and half against it. But I also came across this fascinating article from a little while ago, 2014. It's from this professor at Dartmouth University, Randall Ballmer, who writes about how the evangelical church started to have their opinion, one that we presume has been stable from the beginning, on Roe v. Wade. Here are his words. In 1968, a symposium sponsored by the Christian Medical Society and Christianity Today, the flagship magazine of evangelicism, refused to characterize abortion as sinful and said in their article, quote, individual health, family welfare, and social responsibility are justifications for ending a pregnancy. That's 1968 from an evangelical magazine. In 1971, the Southern Baptist Convention, you've heard of them, in St. Louis passed a resolution encouraging Southern Baptists to work for legislation that will allow the possibility of abortion under such conditions as rape, incest, and clear evidence of severe fetal deformity, and carefully ascertained evidence of the likelihood of damage to the emotional, mental, and physical health of the mother. A pretty close definition to what a lot of Jewish communities would use as their definition, depending on how broadly you want to define the emotional, mental, and physical health of the mother. And in the following year, so that was in 71. The Southern Baptist Convention says we believe abortion can happen in these circumstances. Well, you might say, well, okay, but then Roe v. Wade happened, maybe they changed their mind. No, 1974, after Roe v. Wade, what do? They double down and they say, no, we reaffirm our statement from 4 years ago that actually we believe abortion should be legal in the following circumstances. So it hasn't always been that the evangelical church has been only on one side of the issue. That too, a myth that perhaps we've adopted. So now what about our bias? The idea that we believe as human beings that if I was in somebody else's scenario, I would know what to do. This is more personal, less about organized religion, and more about how perhaps we might think individually. In a recent article in the New York Times that described what the demographics of the typical person seeking an abortion is, they wrote, 25% of women will have an abortion by the end of their childbearing years. So we might think that I don't actually know anybody who has been through this. These are people whose faces I don't recognize. Chances are, if you know more than 3 women in your life, you might know somebody who's been in this scenario and chosen to have an abortion for whatever reason they chose. We might also believe, as a bias, that the more access women have to abortions, the more abortions will happen. This goes along with the myth that women use abortion as a form of birth control, to which I would say, having read the entirety of the article, perhaps we might say is sort of true. That people might use it for birth control, but we might ask why, and why certain women would use it for birth control and others wouldn't. So first, the abortion rate since 1980 has fallen by half. There were half as many abortions in 2020 prior to the law being overturned in the federal courts There were half as many abortions in 2020 as there were in 1980. And we might believe or be under the impression that there are a lot of abortions happening late in a pregnancy. But in fact, 43% happen in the first 6 weeks, 92% in the first 13 weeks. So all of the debate about late birth abortions, late pregnancy abortions, whatever percentage of the debate that takes up, it's referring to 7% of the people. And that's 7% after the 13th week, let alone the 21st week, which is often in the news. Researchers say that the bulk of abortions are happening among people below the poverty line or just above it, which they believe tells us two things. First, if you have means, financial means, it means you have improved access not only to abortion clinics, but also to contraception, and people are choosing to use it. So when I said perhaps this might be a form of birth control, that's a critique often given. We might say, yes, it is, but guess what? It's been proven that if people have easy access to birth control, that this is not an option that they choose. The second is, why would it be that people living in poverty have more abortions than others? Because the growing costs of raising children has been cited among women in poverty, that they simply know that they can't afford to raise this child. You might say, how would they know? Because, again, to debunk another myth, most women who have an abortion have already had a child. 45% are married and living with a partner, or living with a partner. 9% are previously married and single, and 46% are never married. So the idea that we might think, oh, well, when I was 18 or 19 or 20 and single, I wouldn't have made this choice. Well, more than half of the people are not 18 or 19 or 20. More than half of them are married or have been married or living with their partner. And they're making a decision, I would imagine, together about how they handle this complicated situation. In the 13th century in Spain, a famous rabbi by the name of Ramban, he looked at the text that we mentioned earlier about the first mentioned fetus. He said the problem that the text is trying to solve is that a fetus has no recognized value in ancient Israel. Who can say whether it would have survived or not? In other words, we can't put a value on this because we don't know if it's a reality or not yet. And so that was a major challenge for the people writing the Torah, and it was a major challenge later for the rabbis because they couldn't figure out what the punishment would be for somebody who caused a woman to lose that pregnancy if they couldn't figure out what the value of the pregnancy was. I think a lot of the struggle today is the same. We don't know how to value the fetus. For some people, it's a full life. For some people, it's the potential for life. For some people, it's not even that. For some people, it comes with a great fear. For some people, it means that their family won't be able to thrive. For some people, it means that they'll face incredible judgment. For some people, it means that it'll threaten their life. How do we put a value on any of those scenarios unless we ourselves are in the shoes of those people? But we do seem to know how to value the life of a grown woman, of a child living in poverty, of a family making a hard decision, which is why I think, given our history on this issue and our perspective on it as a people, 80% of the Jewish community reports to be pro-choice, the highest among the religious groups polled, which is not to say that if you're not in that 80%, that somehow you are less Jewish or you're wrong. It's simply to say that the way our people have thought about this for centuries is to say, like we do about a lot of things, we just don't know. And so we want to give people a choice. Not because we want abortions to happen, because we're certain that the life of the mother has great value and we are uncertain of the value of the fetus. So we trust our valued women to make this difficult decision, one often filled with many unknowns, and we do our best to be with them to not be against them as they do what they know is right for them and their family. If you want to be involved in this work through our synagogue or through our movement, RAC Ohio, the Reform social justice arm of all the Reform congregations in Ohio, has recently, just this last week, partnered with Ohioans for Reproductive Freedom, which is part of a coalition that is bringing forth an amendment to the state constitution that they hope to be brought up in the fall to be voted upon. And so they invite you to join with this broad group of religious leaders outside of the Jewish religion as well, who are coming together across the state to fight for reproductive freedom. In the email earlier this week, there was an opportunity to sign on and get more information, and they certainly invite all the support that you can give, whether it's with your time or with any funds. For us, I hope that we can use our voice to dispel the myths, especially the religious ones, because we speak with a religious voice and one that is probably a minority, at least in people's perception on this issue. I hope we can use our hands to untie the bias that leads us to believe that somehow we would have made a different or better choice than someone else made, having never walked in their shoes. And most importantly, I pray that the lives of those whom we love are always valued among our people, in our country, and that they have the freedom to make the choice to do with their body as they wish. Amen. We'll turn now to that Torah portion as we turn to our ark. We'll be reading a slightly different section of the Torah. It's more liked by accountants than it is by others, as it's about the penalty for fees. We're in a section of the Torah that's all about, has a long list of these scenarios. It's a great section for lawyers. If you like looking through law books, which I know all of you enjoy doing in your free time, this is a great section for looking at case law. All the things that you think happened that you can't imagine happening, like a pregnant woman being pushed over in the middle of what is described almost as a bar fight. All of this happened in the ancient world, and they wrote it down so that they could learn from it, and so we could learn from it. So please rise as we turn to our Torah. The service begins on page 246. We'll invite Carol Weintraub to be our Torah blesser this evening, as we'll invite her to our podium.
Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udevar Adonai mirushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo, Gadol Adonai iti, uneromema Shemo Yakdav, Lecha Adonai Hagedula, Hagevura, Hativeret, V'Hanitzach V'Hod, Ki kol b'shamayim v'aretz, Ki kol b'shamayim v'aretz, Lecha Adonai Hamalcha, V'Hamitnaseh l'kol arush. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, haolam, haolam omer. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, haolam, haolam omer. HaTorah ve'Havodah ve'Gemilut Chasadim. HaTorah ve'Havodah ve'Gemilut Chasadim. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha
Please be seated as we'll invite Carol to lead us in the blessing over the Torah.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Amvarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher b'chabranu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Amen. Im chesef chalot techalo et ami et he'ani imach lo tiye lo kenoshech lo tesimun alav neshech im tavo tachabo shalmat re'echa ad bo shemesh Hashiveto li ki kusoto levado Hi simlato l'ro'o bema yishka v'haya ki yitak elai v'shamati ki chanun ani.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
And so the translation to get us ready for tax season is, if you lend money to my people, to the poor who is in your power, do not act toward him as a creditor. Exact no interest from him. If you take your neighbor's garment in pledge, you must return it to him before the sun sets. If it is his only clothing, the sole covering for his skin, in what else shall he sleep? Therefore, if he cries out to me, I will pay heed, for I am compassionate. With that story in our mind and the strength that is taken from our scroll, we offer our blessing of Misha Barak for all of those in our lives who are in need of strength and healing in this time. Page 253.
Misheberach avoteinu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen.
If there's a name you'd like to share, please share as I look around the room.
Kathy Meyerson.
Dory Hoffman.
Misheberach imotenu mikor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Please rise as we lift our Torah and prepare to return it to the ark.
Vizot HaTorah aser Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael. Avi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Yadalai lai lai, yadalai lai lai, yadalai lai 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 lai, yadalai lai lai, yadalai lai lai, lai 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 lai, yadalai lai lai, yadalai lai lai. 56. Etz Chaim hi lemach azikima betom lecha meushar derachiha derchei noam v'chol netivotah shalom Hashivenu Adonai V'lecha nashuva Chadish Yameinu Chadish Yameinu Kekedim. Page 282 for the Aleinu. Alina l'shan ve'ach ladon hakol Latikinu la'liotzer reshit Shelo asanu kegoye haratzot Velo samanu kamishmechot adama Shelo samchakenu kaham V'goralenu kachamonam V'anachnu korim U'mishtachavim u'monim Lifnei melech Malchei HaMelachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu V'ne'emar V'haya Adonai V'melech al kol haaretz V'yom hahu Yeh Adonai echad U'shemo U'shemo U'shemo
You can be seated if you'd like. It's a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, to hope, to dream, to be, and to lose. A thing for fools, this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me. Your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing to love what death has touched. We take note of that human act and that holy act by mentioning those that we've lost recently. In our community, we think in particular of Donald Singer, Al Moses, and Celia Levy. We add to their names those that we've lost at this time in years past. Morris Ackman, Scott James Bear, Abraham Belsky, Max Boris, Aaron David Cohen, Abraham Cohen, Lillian Eber, Eva Frank, Martha Freeman, Harold Friedman, Alan Gersman, Nancy Jo Harris, Jerry Hendon, Carol Horn, Milton Cadis, Alma Karn, Ben Corman, Samuel Kotler, Richard Leschen, Melvin Levy, Jenny Deitch Meltzer, Carrie Migdal, Hilda Mild, Blanche Morris, Joan Gale Newman, Harry Pergosin, Harry Richmond, Edward Schott, Louis Segel, Jacob Ludwig Stern, Rita Woolman Stern, S. Stone, Samuel H. Stone, Francis Weiss, and Martin Zimmerman. If there are names I mispronounced or names you'd like to share, please do so. We rise, page 294, as we connect with all of those that we've loved and lost with these words. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, b'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam olmei olmaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Having connected with those that we've loved and lost, we connect with each other as we bless each other with the very words that the priest blessed the people. May God bless you and keep you. May God's presence be with you and be gracious unto you. May you feel the light of God's presence within you always, and may it bring you peace. Please be seated as we've started a new tradition, not something that came from Moses, but something new, that we'd like to share before we close a few good things that have happened for people, and we'll close with Shakianu. So if there's something great that's happened in your week, we'll take good. Great is better, but good is good enough. Important events, things that people want to share, anything good happening in people's lives. Always. You can always count on Mickey for that one. And that, we say that's a miracle, right? That's when we get up in the morning, right? Good, to get up in the morning, yeah. How many people, a 95 on your science test? You're the only one in the room that got a 95 on our science test. That's good. One more.
I'm going to Florida tomorrow.
Yeah, see, I knew it was going to come. Yeah, Carol. Need rollers? Is that what you said? Holy rollers for? All right, enough for 600 Hamantaschen. Right, wonderful. Looking for rollers for Hamantaschen. Awesome. Looking forward to Purim in a few weeks. So for all the good things that are happening in our life and the fact that we get to be here with each other to celebrate them, we'll share the words of Shakianu and we'll close our service.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lezman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Adon olam asher malach b'terem kol